Do you feel the pressure to grow your business, but doing so feels a bit like drowning? Welcome to Slow Growth Business, the show for business owners and leaders to quiet the noise and lead your business to success, one day at a time, slow and steady. If you feel your business is running you and you're ready to run it, you've come to the right place. Now, here are your hosts, business coaches Jimmy DeGroat and me, Kyle Bullock.
I'm Jimmy DeGroat. That is Kyle Bullock, but you can't see him.
Hi.
Welcome to the Slow Growth Podcast. You know what I realized, Kyle? We never told people who we are, what we do.
We don't. We're just two voices in the ether. Just trust us, ladies and gents.
Well, we're going to give you a little bit more, something quantifiable regarding that today, because Kyle is going to tell his story. We both come from the jewelry world. Right now, we are working on a project together. It's not a project, it is a business of passion, and it's called Train Retail. And the idea is we want to take all of the wonderful things that we've learned and we want to share it with the world. We want to share it with every mom and pop store, every big store that needs to hear kind of best practices for retail and the things we've done and maybe things we've screwed up and spent thousands and millions of dollars doing.
That's definitely happened.
So welcome to the Slow Growth Podcast, sponsored by Train Retail. Go to trainretail.com and you can find out all of the wonderful ways that we help people. But Kyle, tell us, Bullock's Jewelry in Roswell, New Mexico. That's your retail background, right? Where you started?
That's right. That's right. I cut my teeth in the retail world. We turned now 1926. We're going to back up in history. 1926. My great-grandfather has a wild idea to branch out on his own and open his own jewelry store in the desert town of Roswell, New Mexico. So he gets a loan from his wife's family. They have a 1-year-old. They open up a new business, young family, and then immediately right after, the Dust Bowl hits.
Oh my goodness.
They figure out how to make it happen. And now, almost exactly 100 years later, I am the 4th generation to own that store in my family. It has been a staple in our community for a very long time. So I came into a retail situation that had a lot of established ground, lots of history, lots of connection within the community, really firm foundation. And my story and learning retail starts at the age of 16, 17, when my dad takes me to consulting courses. He had hired he took me to, I was 16, 17 years old, and I was interested in the kind of the goings on of the business. And he had just hired some consultants to help him grow his business because he was not the dominant force in the town. They were the middle of the pack kind of jewelry store. And so he'd hire these guys. He took me with him, and they were all stats nerds. And I go, oh, that's my people. And I was trained.
Wait a minute. Weren't you doing cleaning the proverbial toilets and wiping the counters?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. Since I was a little kid.
All right.
I was, doing Murphy soap on the wood cases and silverware and all that stuff. My real start was 16, 17, took me to a consulting class where I learned how to run and operate retail companies on paper. And then I'd go back home and I would learn how to do it with him for real.
Now, I got to stop you right there, because let's talk about how incredible that is. Folks, we live in a world where people kind of run things by the seat of their pants and day to day and figuring things out. I've done it for years. We figure things out. But to have a big enough brain or a high enough level brain to go to a class like that yourself, but not only that, bring your kid. I mean, that's big thinking.
Well, you know what it was? It was just big guts. I want to tie as much of my story to our listeners as I possibly can, because I don't want you guys just to hear about me. I want you to think about how this can help you. There was something about my dad, and there still is, still very true. My dad and I are very tenacious people. And when we have a goal, a passion, a dream, something that challenges us, we just kind of go, well, roll your sleeves up. Let's figure it out. Let's go.
Okay.
My dad didn't even have a college education. He took over the store at age 17 when his dad had passed. And he took over. That was the insurance policy for the family. So he spent his whole career running a store based on gut and passion and being scrappy and adaptable.
Mm.
So at that time, He took me with him, not because we were brainiacs, not because it's complicated to run a business, although it is. It was because
Can be.
it can be.
Yeah.
But he took me because he was just tenacious enough to say, I want to do better.
Okay.
And these people are going to challenge us to do better. And that was the ethos he put in me. I think is one of the things that now as we consult people, it makes me super excited when we have a client that is excited to grow and they just don't know what they don't know.
Right.
Because it's like, that's perfect. That's exactly you can do so much on dumb confidence, I say. I mean, you have no idea what you're doing, but you go, by George, just figure it out.
Well, it started with your grandfather. Was it your grandfather or great
Great-grandfather?
Okay. You just had a baby. You get into a business. I mean, that's a pretty risky thing to do.
Yeah. It was crazy.
So it's all in the family.
All in the family. Runs in the blood. Yeah.
Okay. So let's fast forward to dad decides he wants to retire. What are you doing college wise? I mean, what are you thinking in your late teens? Are you thinking, I'm going to take this over someday? Or are you thinking, no, I'm going to go off and,
No.
Okay.
I had no intention of coming back to my hometown, no intention of being in the business for a while. So my formal education, after I leave high school, I go off to college and I get trained in what was really one of my biggest passions is psychology. So I was a student of psychology. I did clinical psychology for a while, and then I did it's called industrial organizational psychology, business psychology. Did research on that, did consulting with a company there at my university for a while in that. Did master's work in leadership. So all of my education was in people. How do you manage people? How do you lead people? And we took a very scientific approach to it. Long story short, I have all these experiences in the world of psychology and clinical psychology and in higher education. And the timing was right. My dad says, I want to retire. And for so many reasons I don't have time to get into, I think it's time to come home. I had my fun. So let's go try my hand at this. And now many years later, he is semi-retired. I hired him back because he turns out to be a pretty good employee. That was my background, even in bringing it to working with our clients, Jimmy, is one part retail, one part brain science.
But frankly, that's one of the reasons I kind of glommed onto you when you and I had that mistaken phone call. By the way, I'll tell that story when I tell my story next week. But yeah, that was one of the things I loved about you, because so many of the issues that we have in retail come from the fact that people are not trained in people management. They become managers because they're in front of the person and they look the best at the moment, but rarely are people trained to be managers or leaders. Here people have multi-million-dollar stores, and they started off, as we talked a few weeks ago, as a technician right behind the bench, and now all of a sudden I've got this. I own a building. I got payroll. The thing is, people don't realize we're not experts at everything.
We're not experts at everything. I may come across on a podcast as like, oh, he knows what he's talking about. But let me tell you that there's so much I don't. I'm not as strong at marketing skills as you are, Jimmy. I mean, I reach out to you going, okay, what do I do about this? And you've got that perspective. The first lesson that I can share out of this story is that when you start a business, you need people. Ironically, people are also the thing that will make it probably the most difficult.
Right.
I had one client even this morning tell me, I love what I do, but there are some days that doing the HR thing makes me just want to quit. And I go, I know that's not the place you should be in. That's not the place you have to be in. But at the same time, you have to have people who are better than you at some things.
Sure.
And they help you grow. That is really the impetus of slow growth.
Yeah.
It's your ability to lead other people and help them be the best version of themselves in your organization you can possibly.
Yeah. That was my mission every single day at the jewelry store, is find people that do this better than me. And the things that I wanted to do, I didn't find people to do better than me because I wanted to do those in the business. I was great at those. For example, a bookkeeper. I mean, if you want to murder Jimmy DeGroat, put him in a room with a computer and say, you're going to do bookkeeping for the rest of your life, I will die. But to find somebody that's great at it, that loves doing it, that geeks out at it, and just it's so much fun. And you did a management video this week that I just edited with the Blue Angels. And folks,
Yeah.
I'm plugging Kyle on this one on the train retail management program because what a beautiful thing. This pilot gets out of this jet after just flying amazing trickery in the air. And he says, I'm not the pilot. That's the real pilot over there. And it was the mechanic. By the way, the mechanic was in the 9G club.
Yeah.
So he was like a super pilot.
Top 1% of pilots in the entire military.
Right. That's humility. You're changing oil on a jet and you can do that. And that's incredible.
People are the secret to the sauce. Now, I'll segue. I came into a family business that had a longevity and a foundation. And there's a lot of you who are listening to this who have started your business, your first generation. You started the company or you are starting the company and you're figuring that out. And one of the things that you have to try to do is just establish yourself as a business. I'm going to put a pin in that and come back to that in a second. Okay. But others of you who are listening to this are like me. You are multiple generations. So there's already a foundation there. When you come into ownership of that company, there is a desire, a temptation, I'll even say, inside of you to want to grow that company aggressively. Now, for those who have just started the company and you're just starting out your first few years, first generation, you also have this hunger. I want to grow the company aggressively, and you kind of need to. The most difficult but wonderful advice given to me by my mentor when I came into ownership of the company, it was that first year, do nothing. Don't grow. Intentionally don't grow the company. Why? Because there's power in consistency. There's power in consistency. And the more consistent you can make your business month over month, week by week, year over year, not only is it good for your pocketbook, but it's good for your customers because they're all looking at you going like, well, you're the new game in town or you're the new management in town. I mean, are you going to completely change the environment? All your employees are looking at you going, you're the new game in town. You're the new manager in town. Are you going to completely change this on me? And very, very quickly, you can change and grow so fast that the foundation that you've established or the one that you're starting to establish crumbles because it's not set yet. It's like trying to build a house on a slab that the concrete hasn't set or the foundation isn't sturdy.
Oh, and we see that too when people try to hire superstar salespeople or managers or even new owners or even new coaches of football teams. You know, don't try to make huge changes and adjustments. Get in there and start riding it for a bit, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, now, there's some changes you have to make. Sometimes there's decisions that come up that are difficult. You might have to. But for the most part, if you as a leader can come to a point where you've just started your company and you're in your first, second year, or you just come into ownership of a company, family business, that first year, the first year and a half even, don't grow the company. Simply observe it for the first 6 months. The second 6 months, slowly start to fine tune it, but not grow it. Fine tune it. Are you saving cost in the right places? Are you as efficient as you could possibly be? Are you establishing relationships with your employees and your customers as deep as you need to? And then and only then, after you've spent a year, first 6 months, do nothing but observe. Second 6 months, do nothing but just to tweak where you're at. Then you have this strong foundation to grow rather consistently and do it maybe faster than you realized you could do it. But most importantly, do it consistently.
But do it well. Yep. Now, when you took over from Dad, and I know there's siblings that are involved in the business where business gets passed on, and I know that can get kind of ugly at times, especially if nothing legally is done. What kind of tools did you put in place with Dad to take over the business?
So I was in a unique situation because we had wonderful advice from people who succeeded the company or bought the company from a family member or from somebody, interested party, and gave us the advice of what to do and what not to do. So when my dad and I made the arrangement, I basically gave him a blank piece of paper with Actually, I literally gave my dad a signed piece of paper that was blank, and it said, I agree to the terms herein, blank page. I signed it, I dated it, I gave it to him.
Wow.
Deal's done.
Wow.
Put whatever you want on the page.
Wow.
That's how we formed the arrangement.
Sure.
Now, that sounds cool at first, but let me back up to the 5 or 6 years it took before we could do that.
Oh, okay.
That
Okay.
that took work. And if there's a running theme that you guys can hear on this episode with me, people make the difference in your company, and don't try to go explosively out the gate. So what we ended up doing, we spent years working on our relationship, literally hired a counselor, basically,
Mhm.
to counsel us in our relationship and trust as partners.
Okay.
And then apply that to any family members who were in it, and worked for years to make sure everybody was really good
Solid.
as
Yeah.
as a unit.
Okay.
And then we got to the point of trust. The goal was, I want to give you a piece of paper that I sign and you fill out, and I trust you implicitly. If I don't trust you that much as my business partner, then this is never going to work. Not really.
Right.
So that's what we did. We worked hard on our relationship to make it a solid foundation. Had we not done that, I would have advised anybody in my situation to either take a loan out by the company and get rid of the owners,
Mm-hmm.
no partners whatsoever, or find a new venture, because it's going to sour things.
Yeah.
And we chose to work on it, and I'm so glad we did.
Yeah. It's clear boundaries. I love that, getting to work on your relationship. I mean, that's incredible. I like your last advice there too. And if you don't do that, just write a check, get them out of there, that type of thing. It's got to be clean, whatever it is, as clean as possible.
The easy thing about buying a business is buying the business part. You can hire attorneys and CPAs, and you should, to help you with the structure. That's just
Mhm.
structure.
Yeah.
It's time and attention. And every hour that I spent working on that with him, I had to do that with the staff too, right? Because we had long timers. They were all there 20 plus years by the time I
Mhm.
come in.
Oh,
Okay. So they come in and they go, oh, well, look at this guy.
yeah.
Who
The
does
kid.
he think he is?
The kid.
The kid. And that's why I come back to that advice of do nothing, observe, invest. People who have been there longer than you are all thinking in their minds, oh, you just came in this thing and suddenly you know how this thing works.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't been here as long as I. You haven't seen the stuff I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. You haven't seen the things that they've seen. So sit at their feet and listen and watch and observe. And very quickly, not only will you have seen the things they've seen because they'll share the stories, but you'll have seen it through their eyes and understand their perspective.
Yeah.
That's how you build relationships.
I'm a bit of a construction guy. I love to get my hands on, projects and things like that. There's a carpenter. I think it might have been the guy from Parks and Recreation, Ron. Low and slow is the way to go. Low and slow. And that's why we're called the Slow Growth Podcast.
Yeah.
Low and slow. I mean, especially when you're handling something that's really big and really heavy. Anytime you're moving something big, and if it's a business and you're getting into it, it's low and slow.
Building a company, you can be really aggressive and fast. And doing that almost feels like I'm trying to hit a destination. If I can just grow the company to this rate, if I can just make these millions, if I can just launch this thing and get to this point, I've hit it's like you're working towards some destination. But I think I said in one of the first podcasts, it's like working towards a destination that's never there, because you always have something else that you want to do.
Yeah.
And you find that unless you go low and slow, that you're working towards an end you'll never satisfy, and you're frustrated because your daily working life isn't satisfying in and of itself either. I'm just busting my back every day. I'm stressed. I'm frustrated. I'm tired. I've got a team I don't like. They don't like me. This is a combative relationship. My family's falling apart because it's a family business and we all hate each other, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Whoa. Slow down and decide today why don't we just make the situation we're in right now really good and let that be the destination, and you live in the destination. And the growth is just a natural outcrop, a natural movement, because you live in the destination of the place you really want to be in. A lovely work environment that you can't wait to wake up to and see your friends and family every day.
Awesome. I don't know how to close this, man. This is fantastic. I don't want to close it, but we gotta.
I'll just reiterate for those who hear my story. Now I've taken years in the jewelry industry and in clinical psychology and leadership world and consulting there. And I bring it over to what Jimmy and I are doing. Our passion is reaching out to small business retailers all over the place and instill these things that we've learned in them, because we want the destination they're at right now to be a wonderful one. And the growth is something that you happen to have as a result of the place you create. So if you can hear anything in my story, in my experience, it's one, create a wonderful foundation to build on. And that means slow down or sometimes stop so that you can really establish the foundation before you build on it, whether you're buying a company or you start one yourself. And then two, people are the secret in the sauce. The way you build that foundation is through people. Yeah. It's through the relationships you forge with your partners in your business and the relationship you forge with your employees and your customers. And that's worth taking time to do. And if you do that and you do it with consistency, you have no idea where your business can go.
It's a beautiful thing. I love it when we are talking with people on Zoom, Kyle, and we just see their faces go from craziness and hecticness to, this is good. I love it. Hey, if you guys have any questions or want to bring anything up or want us to expound on anything further, send us an email. It's kyle@trainretail.com, Kyle, or Jimmy@trainretail.com. And that's Jimmy with a Y, Jimmy @trainretail.com.
We hope you leave this episode a little better than when you first began. If you'd like more resources to grow your business slow, steady, and consistently, check out our on-demand video catalog at trainretail.com. Or if you have a question or frustration we can help address in your business, write to us about it. We love to help solve big, ugly problems. So hit us up at kyle@trainretail.com or jimmy@trainretail.com. Good luck out there, and we will see you next time.